Hey, what's going on everybody? George here once again from the Vitality Guru, helping and inspiring you to live a happier, healthier and more rewarding life. So in the last video I spoke about a lot more about what the virus really is, what this epidemic is, how this virus has actually arose likely from within us as a sign of toxicity being built up, how that builds into the whole 5G conspiracies that are going about, how that ties into vaccines and whole vaccine conspiracy, and just really into the depth of the viral anatomy that actually make what's going on a little bit easier to grasp and a bit more understandable. If you haven't already watched that, I suggest watch that video first before you watch this one. I'll link it up in, hopefully up this corner somewhere. Yeah, please watch that video first. To start this video off, before I say anything, once again I want to just say that I'm not trying to belittle what's going on right now. I'm trying to help sort of ease the stress and ease this crisis, but I'm really not trying to belittle what's going on. In fact, I'm probably actually trying to make something bigger out of what's going on, bring some awareness to what's actually going on behind the screen that we're seeing on the TV, basically. Obviously right now, global illness has scoured the globe and we are seeing it everywhere. Every country, every nation, every walk of life, every age, everyone's being affected by this in some way. And we can't deny that. I'm not going to say that's anything other than the truth, because we're seeing that with our own eyes and we have that to believe. However, one thing that's made this so prominent is that we have a heightened awareness of this crisis, and that is mainly down to the media, but I'll get into that in a bit. On the other hand, there is a lot of things going on every single day in the world that we pay no attention to, that we're stuck in our own little bubbles of our own little worlds and we ignore what's going on in the world. And when things like this happen, when we get a global crisis that is affecting the lives of everyone, we really start to see who really doesn't understand how the world works and who does. And what I mean by that is that there are people out there, and don't get wrong, if you have 100 deaths in one night, that is a lot of people dying. I don't want anyone to die. No one does. Well, obviously some people probably do, but the vast 99% of the human population, probably more, don't want people to suffer, don't want people to die. However, people are panicking about the fact that over the last sort of 4 to 5 months, we've seen about 50,000 deaths due to this coronavirus pandemic. And don't get wrong, that is huge. That is a lot of deaths, and I'm not going to try and say that's anything less than what it is. However, at the same time, we need to realise every second 1.8 people have died, and every single week 14,000 people die of flu-like illness and things like what we're seeing now. As a standard, that's every single week 14,000 people are dying from something like this. However, suddenly when it's 2,000 people in a week, we're all absolutely in mass hysteria. That comes down to the fact that we're not aware of what's going on in the world. A lot of people are oblivious. A lot of people do not give a shit if it's not affecting them. Of course, we're also having the media ramp this up into something so much bigger than it is, acting like millions and millions are dying every single day, when in reality it's probably one of the smaller reasons people are dying every day. It's only a small fraction of our worldly deaths, of people committing suicide, people overdosing, people dying of illness, people dying of old age, people dying of murder, people being hit by cars, people, all these things that people die from that we don't care about usually. We have a heightened awareness of the coronavirus COVID-19 cases, which the symptoms pretty much co-align exactly with pneumonia, where you get inflammation in the lungs and you get a cough, you get difficulty breathing. You start getting respiratory shutdown, basically, which, again, for people who have a condition that underlies their immune system that make them more susceptible to people who are elderly, to people who are very young, to people who have lung problems. They are going to be more susceptible to pneumonia. The same goes for the coronavirus, which is having very similar expressions on the human body. As I mentioned in the previous episode of this video, symptoms when they arise usually aren't a sign of someone getting ill, but usually a sign that illness has been present within the body, and that toxicity has basically, whatever toxicity it was that was creating that build-up, that congestion within the body has to try and get rid of that. And we use any way we can. We cough, we sneeze, we spit, we vomit, we defecate, we urinate, we fever, we try and burn the infection from the inside out. We try and do all these things to kill off and to remove toxicity, to kill off and remove anything that's damaging to our bodies. So where does this toxicity come from? Well, unfortunately, a lot of the human race for a very long time now have tried to live and consume products and produce and all these things that are severely overloaded with toxic substances, which comes from things like fast food, processed foods, things that are GMO'd, things that are filled with artificial or harmful substances, sugar, sweeteners, oils, things like this. People have been living on sugary drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, alcohol, substances that are known to be toxic, filled with sugars, sweeteners, things like that, as well as alcohol. You look at the other legal drugs like nicotine and things like that are accepted into society, and tobacco that is laced with 600 different additional substances that are nothing to do with tobacco. Things like vaping, things that haven't even been remotely researched yet, that are given to the public. As well, if you look at the way our medical industry works, we don't actually offer natural treatments anymore. We create a synthetic drug equivalent from the substance that was once medicinal. And don't get me wrong, you still get benefits from certain medications. You still get an ease and a suppression of certain symptoms. For example, if you take an opiate painkiller, you still get the opiate benefits of pain relief, things like that. But then the way, if you look at the pharmacology of most medications, there is a bunch of side effects that come along with that medicinal effect. Whereas if you look more to the natural versions where these substances are derived from, you'll see that the effect is generally just more straightforward. All these things that we've been consuming within our bodies as a culture, as a human race, we've been living off inorganic produce that's filled with oils, filled with sugar, that's processed relentlessly, that's filled with sweeteners, that's filled with additives, that's filled with anything to make it taste better and prolong its life. Things that are known to be toxic. So when you actually realise that as a society, as a culture, we've been absolutely bombarding our bodies with this overload of toxicity, that things like the chemicals that are in our food, in our drinks, in our drugs that we're given, that are promoted in our society, and the medical treatment that we're offered, all of these things are known to have neurotoxins and carcinogens and things that are damaging to the human body within them. And it's not even just that we have an option to consume them, it's that they are almost forced upon us through the use of marketing, through the use of the media. Things like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all these big name brands, Walkers, Lay's, they have more money to advertise than any other small-time health food brand or health food store or anything like that could ever consider having. And so they have the upper market here. So, and these things are just allowed to be promoted and allowed to be given to children and given to people at any age, despite their known toxicity, their known damage to the human biology. And if you look at America, for example, you've even actually got certain laws that protect things like fast food restaurants and food labels and food companies, drinks companies, that if people get sick, people get diabetes, people get heart failure, people get anything from the consumption of their food, they are not liable. They have full waiver of liability, despite they are promoted actively and they are almost forced upon societies and known to lead to damages to human health. So when you look at all this that we've been putting in our bodies and that we've been consuming for so long, you can start to realise why people have been suffering with illnesses for such a long time. And 95% of the population have been suffering with a disease or an acute illness that's long term. And that's regardless of the coronavirus case. That's been going on regardless for about at least 5 to 10 years now at that statistic. I think it's actually gone up to about 95.8 if I'm correct. And like I said in my previous video, there is a pandemic of the coronavirus. It is a new strain of coronavirus that is present now, scouring the globe. However, like I said in the previous video, that doesn't spread the same way a bacterial infection will spread, because viruses aren't alive. They're genetic information, they're single strands of genetics, RNA, DNA, things like that, that are within the body that are dormant until activated through toxicity. And so, really, this whole pandemic that we're seeing of the COVID-19, the one that the news, the media is promoting, that the governments are enforcing laws about, is really just a massive, massive distraction from what's going on. And I know that's quite a lot to hear. I know it's not fun, I know it's not nice, but some people do really just need to hear what's actually going on with the coronavirus in the grand scheme of what goes on in the world is minuscule. Thousands and thousands and thousands more people die every single day. People die from a similar condition, a similar illness, every single day. Continuously, have been for years and years and years and years, decades now. However, the news and the media have made this into something much, much bigger than it really is, getting people in mass hysteria, mass panic, mass fear about what's going on in the world, because they know people are really unaware of what's going on. And why? What's the distraction all about? Well, the same as every media distraction, and I'm just going to put this out there. The news, mainstream media, is used to distract you, to keep you entertained whilst they pass new laws. That is it. It's that simple. I'm going to show you a video from another YouTuber that I've watched for quite a while now in regards to what's going on behind the curtain of the current coronavirus case.
In a matter of not days but hours, actually, new laws are implemented, and I'll read some examples. Now this is from a Norwegian newspaper called VG. It's, I believe, the largest Norwegian newspaper. I haven't checked the sources, but it is mostly trustworthy, usually in this newspaper. So let me just give you these examples that they list here. Extreme measures taken around the world to combat the virus. In Nepal, you will be caged. You will be actually put in a cage in public if you break the quarantine rules. In the Philippines, their fine president, Rodrigo Duterte, he says that if you break the quarantine rules, you will be shot. In Panama and Peru, there are now rules, gender separation. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, only men can be outside of their homes. Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, women can go outside. In Poland, if you are in isolation, it says you have to take a selfie, not to risk having the police on your door to check on you, what's going on. It says here, if you're in quarantine, you must download I think it's a tracking app, or the police will come. And when you get a message to take a selfie, you have to take a selfie within 20 minutes. The tracking app thing seems to be very popular, how they are implementing the tracking apps. The governments, they love to track people, it seems. In South Korea, in Iran, in Israel. They will know now. They are now tracking you. In Austria, Belgium, Italy, Germany, the telecom companies will now share the information about where you're moving to the governments. They say it's totally anonymous. Yeah, right. In Taiwan, they use mobile data to make an electronic fence, and the police and the authorities will be told if you leave your home or if you turn off your mobile phone. And then you have, if you do that, you have 15 minutes and then the police will come. In Vietnam, there's a similar tracking app. In Singapore, also tracking app. In Hong Kong, electronic tag on you. So they put a tag on you. I think we all understand that the freedoms that are taken away from us now, it's not necessarily freedoms that will be given back to us. So this is dangerous. This is dangerous. We are losing our freedom. As I speak now, we are losing our freedom.
Right underneath our feet, our human rights are being taken away as we speak. As you're watching this video, your human rights are being taken. A rather small viral pneumonia outbreak, which, if you look at the stats, is rather small. I know it's affecting people's lives. I'm not taking this lightly. But in the whole grand scheme of things, a viral pneumonia outbreak, which is rather small in comparison to all the other outbreaks and the other conditions and the other illnesses that are going on right now in the world that are killing people, is being used to lock you in your homes, to keep you away from family, to limit where you can go, how you can act, where you can go. In some parts of the world, it is being used to track you from your mobile device. It is being used as a tool for the police, for the authoritarian government to control your lives and limit your freedom. Now, if you're not a human rights activist, and I'm not, now is the time to be, because soon you will not have any rights to be an activist about. And I mean that sincerely. If you look at the way the world's going, look at what's going on, things are not adding up. In 1918, we were in the midst of a world war, and we had an influenza outbreak that killed around 100 million people. Things didn't go into lockdown, things didn't go into shutdown, things didn't stop. People were still fighting a war, working and keeping the society up as best they could. In 1958, we had an Asian flu epidemic. Society went on, don't get wrong, people got sent home from work, people got sent home from school, but society didn't collapse. The entire world has gone into lockdown, into quarantine. trillion-pound economies have collapsed. Education systems have been stopped. Martial laws are being enforced. Police ruling is being enforced. You are now restricted as to where you can go, how long you can be out, why you are out, what you can buy. Massive amounts of businesses have been forced to close. And meanwhile, whilst everyone's distracted with this being about a coronavirus outbreak that will eventually blow over and that a vaccine will be created for and things will return back to normal, you are having all of your fundamental human rights taken away, and they will not be coming back if you allow it. Now, why do we put up with this? Well, like I said, we have an absolute onslaught of toxicity built up within our bodies, from food, from medication, from drinks, from alcohol, from tobacco, from all these things. We have been suppressed biologically. We have been given substances that damage us neurologically, that make our bodies weak, that make our organs slow, that make our heart rate high, that make our blood pressure high, that makes our lungs weak. And we haven't noticed this because it's been a drip feed over a long period of time. If this was done rapidly, we would have all noticed, but it was done slowly over the last course of the last few decades at least, maybe longer. And so we've become weak, we've become sick, we've become ill. And You can't deny that now. You've only got to look around the world. We are all very much unwell. We are all dealing with all these different symptoms arising. Now, don't get me wrong, some of us were fortunate enough. Some of us woke up to what was going on in the world and saw what was happening to our health, whether because we've suffered severely or we've almost faced death or whatever our reason has. Some of us have had that pressure and had that stress put on us that we needed to change. And in doing that change, we managed to actually get past this phase, this detoxification phase already. Others, a lot of people still haven't, and that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing that built-up toxicity coming out of us. Now, on top of the whole physical onslaught that we've had from corporations and from industries to make profits of the sickening of the human population, we've also had a mental onslaught from the mainstream media, from advertisements, from TV shows, from news and things like that are using psychological tricks to damage us neurologically, that are damaging us psychologically, that are affecting us as beings, that are affecting us, making us feel insignificant, making us feel weak, making us feel soft or lesser or small or insignificant in any possible way. And this is done through a range of psychological tactics. And if you want to actually look into the research behind this, I recommend you check out Sigmund Freud, who was an absolute phenomenal psychologist and I believe neurologist as well. His nephew, Edward Bernays, took his uncle's research and used the psychology to create what we know as public relations, PR, and derived psychological techniques from his grandfather's work and sold them to major advertisement businesses to trick and deceive their audience into buying products that they didn't actually want to buy. And those same techniques have never been dropped. They are used now, they are taught as part of just advertising, as marketing, as media, and they are adopted more so than anyone by the major corporations selling you these products that are toxic, selling you them that are harmful. And that's only advertisement. Don't forget you've got the TV shows, all these reality shows, these soaps, to basically just to distract you, to keep you entertained. Now don't get me wrong, if you look at soaps, you look at reality TV, they're made to try and make you think that that's how people should behave. It's to make you stereotype and to become a stereotype. And as well to make you think that that's how the world works, whether it's in a cartoon, whether it's in a a reality show, a Netflix series, a soap, whatever it is, they are used to trick you into thinking that's the real world and that's how you should be and that's how you should behave. And then you've got the third string of the media, which is the news. If you don't already know this, I'm surprised you're watching this video, but the news is solely fear propaganda, distractions, and manipulation. It's there to give you false perceptions of the world, to make you think that the world is worse than it is, that the world is a dangerous place, and that you should fear it, and that you need someone to protect you. You need security, and that's where the governments come in. Now, if you don't already know that, I'm sorry to drop the reality bomb on you, but that is how the media works. If you've done media studies, fortunately, I was lucky enough to study media studies when I was young, and I learned this very early, but you really don't know how it works. It's very simple. They take real life events. You could argue that they make up real life events or that they set up real life events. However, I'm not even going to bother debating that, but they take real life events and promote the fuck out of them whilst ignoring everything else that's going on in the world. So, for example, whilst, let's say, on any given day, 5,000 people recover of life-threatening illness, 20,000 people have saved the lives of another person, thousands of people have been born, hundreds of people have started a new business, hundreds of people have got married. All you hear about are the one person who got stabbed, the person who was sexually assaulted, the drop in the economy, the rise in taxes, and possibly a cute video of a random dog at the end to make it seem lighthearted. That's textbook news media. They follow a very simple, very strategic plan. 95% of propaganda that's promoted around fear, to manipulate you, to trick you, to deceive you about the worldly view, followed by one little light-hearted thing at the end so you do not think the programme is all bad. And then they just rinse and repeat that every single day. Why does this go on? This is where things really kind of come into a conspiracy, but with really what's going on in the world right now and the way people are seeing what's going on, suddenly things really aren't seen as so much of a conspiracy anymore. As I mentioned, we have a physical and mental onslaught of toxicity, of fear, of harmful chemicals, harmful substances, and psychological abuse from the media, from promotion, from advertising companies, using all these psychological techniques to trick us and to make us feel lesser than we are. And all of this has had a huge effect on us. It's made us sick physically, it's made us weak physically, it's made our immune systems weak, it's damaged the psychology, it made us feel inferior, it's made us feel scared of the world, it's made us feel all this anxiety about other people. And don't get me wrong, I know things are going on in the world, there are things to be worried about, and there are things to have to look out for. But realise how much of that also comes from the fact that a lot of people in certain societies or in certain parts of the world or certain cultures and certain minority groups are not only suffering and going through the same as the entire population, but they have almost been like handpicked out to be bullied by police forces, by governments, by news, by media. And you look at things like racism, the way that some cultures are hammered down on by police brutality, the same way that some places in the world we've restricted these people of fundamental human rights, such as marriage, such as love, such as adoption or having children and things like that. It's absolutely crazy. And so all of us as a human race, some more than others, but all of us as a human race have just been absolutely hammered and beaten down from every possible angle, biologically, physically, mentally and emotionally. And this has basically caused a weakening of the human race. It's made us very fragile, very easy to be deceived, to be manipulated, to be used, to be controlled. And that's why the media and all that's why it's all based around fear. If you can keep a human being in fear, they are so susceptible to being mistreated. And if anyone who's watching this video has been in some form of abusive relationship or has known someone to be in an abusive relationship, you'll know how fear is used to deceive, to manipulate, to control. And it is just an insecurity tactic coming out where the person who is abusing someone feels fragile, feels weak, and so they have to do everything they can to express that onto the other person so that the other person doesn't leave them or that the other person doesn't realise that they are who they are. And so fear is used to control us, because if you're in fear, you aren't easy to control because you want support, you want protection, and you want security. And you can give people the illusion of getting those things, and that's what governments do. Whilst under the illusion that your finances, your safety, your health is being secured by a lockdown, by a grant, by a fund, laws are being put in place that you are not even going to get remote control of freedom, that you're going to be tracked everywhere you go, that you're going to be restricted everywhere you go. And all these things are being put into place right underneath your feet whilst you have no idea what's going on. Now, why are we being controlled? Why is this going on? Well, unfortunately, there is really no easy way to answer that. That's why we've had people for the last 50 years called conspiracy theorists that have been going on about this government that are trying to kill people, that are trying to control people. It's why George Orwell wrote 1984. It's why there's been so many films about totalitarian governments, authoritarian governments, and all these dystopian movies come out in the last 20 years. People have known about what's going on, and unfortunately a lot of people just weren't ready to hear it, weren't ready to believe it. And so it's actually a cultural norm to mock someone who knew this as being paranoid, as being mentally ill, as being crazy, as being unstable, and all these things. And suddenly now we're all starting to really see what these people meant. As to why, unfortunately, some people like to control other people. People are greedy, people are selfish, people have cruelness within them. And when people have this pent-up negativity, whether it's from abuse in their childhood or whatever, people latch onto things in their life as an excuse to mistreat other people. And it is really honestly no joke when someone says, although it seems conspiracy based, when people say that the government, that the people in power are quite truly psychopaths. When you actually know what's going on, you realise how many people are killed by the hands of these people every day, when you realise that anyone who speaks out about them, people who try and promote love and peace and unity and try and stop war and all these things, culturally we are programmed to shit on them. Unfortunately, there are people out there in power that love money and love abusing people and love mistreating people and love ruling over people. And I suppose if you look at our history, that's always been there. You look at kings, queens, royalty. People really need to start to realise what's going on in the world, because at the rate things are going, at the rate that our human rights are being stripped, at the rate that laws are being put in that will not benefit any of us other than billionaires and governments and corporations, world leaders and all of that, whilst new technology which is being implemented regardless of who wants it and regardless of the effects that's going to have on people's health, just because it allows people to have more control over the masses. And what I mean by that is the new 5G technology. I spoke in my previous video about how the 5G is tied in possibly to the virus epidemic that's come out, but also 5G is being implemented underneath our feet whilst we're all isolated, whilst we're all locked in. New 5G technology is being promoted and being put out into our societies, all around cities, all around our towns, all around schools and all these other places, despite the mass amount of research that has shown that these types of radiation technology is harmful, both in the short and long term, to human health and well-being, that is known to cause illnesses to arise, it's known to lead to cancer, it's known to lead to neurological damage and changes in psychology and things like that. Regardless of all that, these new things are being implemented regardless. And so we're really starting to see what it means by government control. We're really starting to see a government completely take away human rights, completely take away freedom, and to put us all under house arrest, to make us all convinced that we're going to injure another member of the human race. And so we're really starting to see the effect that the government has on all of us. Things are going to get a bit weird soon. Things are getting weird. Things have got weird, actually, and things are only going to get weirder. And so I really think it's important that people actually start to see what's going on right now, because sooner or later, you're going to have to, and the quicker you do it, the easier it will be. Fortunately, over the last sort of 50 years, we have seen a change in humanity. People have changed, and maybe not enough, maybe enough, I don't know. But people have changed. People have become more aware of what's going on. People have become more aware of the damage that's going on in the world, the damage to the environment, the damage to the ecostructure, the damage to wildlife, the damage to human health, the damage to entire nations, entire cultures, the damage that the media and social media and technology is having on human health and well-being. They're becoming aware of how governments are mistreating their people they're sworn to serve and protect, and how freedom is being taken from us, how people are being made to become sick and to become unwell, and then treated with medical treatments that aren't actually going to help them too much, just to keep them in this loop of being sick and being unwell. People have become aware of this, and in this rise in awareness, we've obviously started seeing things a lot more as they are now versus compared to what we thought they were. And so for a lot of people, that has caused change and movements in the world. It's where the rise in veganism came from. It's where the whole LSD hippie movement in the 60s and all that came from. It's where the movement of people doing yoga and meditation and all that has come from recently. It's why people have become really interested in self-awareness and their psychology. It's why there's been such an increase in things like quantum physics and spirituality and esotericism and holistic health and all that. Is why there's been a rise in all these things. And as humanity changes, as we become more self-conscious, as we go through this global shift in consciousness, which is what I've been talking about on my channel throughout, basically what I've written about in my books and what many thousands of others now have been discussing for the last 30 years. As we've been going through these changes, as we become more self-aware of our own beings, as we become more aware of the way the world is and the way the world works, we become less likely to conform to the abuse we are given. And what I mean by that is, if you realise your freedom is being stripped and you realise that your health is being taken from you, you are less likely to give in to the things that are doing that. So we have seen a change in people. People have realised that a lot of the behaviours they were doing had a negative impact on their psychology. And so they started doing meditation, they started doing yoga, they started taking care of themselves. We started seeing people realise the effect that we're seeing people who have realised the health impact of processed foods, of junk food, supermarket food, GMOs, takeaways and all of that, the effect they're having on our health. And so we've seen a rise in health food produce, in organic produce, in healthy living. We've seen a rise in activists. We've seen mass amounts of the population adopt plant-based whole food diets to stop the onslaught of billions of deaths of animals every year just for the sake of burgers and bacon and cheese and all this stuff. As we come together and we realise that we actually do not need authoritarian control to overrule us, as we realise that we can make better decisions for ourselves, that we can be kind and compassionate to others and to integrate and to live as a society and all of these things, then those in power, those who are seeking to control us, are losing their grip. And so they are ramping up their efforts to do what they can. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you know about the whole New World Order, Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, elites, globalists, we've got all these different names, that there is most likely, if you look at the way corporations work, if you look at the way governments work, if you look at the way capitalism works, there is likely always someone or a bunch of people at the top of the pyramid that have the most power, most money, most control, most authority. That's all that is. There's no conspiracy there. That's just how the world works. If you look at any business, any corporation, there's always someone sitting at the top, or a bunch of people, or a group of people, or a board of people. It always leads up from, you've got your workers, you've got your managers, you've got your directors, or whatever, and it slowly goes up until you've got your absolute head or leader, or whatever you want to call it. The same goes for governments. You've got people in Parliament who do the public discussions, who discuss passing of bills and all that. Then you've got your public faces, you've got your secretaries, you've got your Prime Minister, your President, whoever it is. There's always a small amount of people at the top that have more power, more control, more money, more authority. And the people at the top of that right now that will call the Illuminati, call the New World Order, call the elitists, call any of these things, they realise that there is a change in humanity, and they realise that people are realising more and more that governments lie, that the news and media lie to us, that our health is being disregarded. And so more and more people are starting to realise that they are better off by themselves. They're better off without all these things that they are deceived into living with, that they are tricked to buy and tricked to waste their money on to make themselves feel better or to make them feel less crap about themselves. And so, as all this is going on, those in control are realising this, and they are basically giving every effort they can to keep their control. And I said before, this is very much similar to an abusive relationship. If anyone's been in one, you'll know exactly what I talk about here. But when you're in an abusive relationship, you are tricked, you are deceived, you are manipulated, you are brainwashed, you are lied to, and all these things to make you feel lesser and lesser about yourself, to make you're convinced that you're meaningless, worthless, weak, fragile, all of these things, and that no one cares about you, no one loves you, no one deserves you, and that you deserve to be mistreated. And if you're actually able to get out of that, and you actually start to build your own sense of self-worth and your own sense of backbone and your own sense of self-stability, that really insults and makes the other person, the abuser, feel severely insecure. And so that anger, that frustration from within them, that attack that they're feeling from your empowerment, that which reminds them of how fragile they really are, they overamp their efforts, they get nastier, they get more forceful, more enforcing, more rage-filled and things like that. The same thing is happening with our governments right now. People are living different lives. Young people, people my age, people actually able to get out of the 9-to-5 life, starting their own franchises, starting their own businesses, starting their own social media companies and actually earning their own money, rather than going to school and getting into student debts and all that. People are eating better, people are living healthy lifestyles, they're treating their bodies well, they're treating their minds well, they're not sitting in front of the TV all day, and they know this, and so in their panic, they are trying to do everything they can to enforce and strengthen their control on the human race, individual governments as a whole. So every country's got their own little way of doing this right now. Every country's seeing something different. Some are getting martial law and quarantine, some are getting lockdown, some are getting some are getting all these different things, and we're all getting our own different ways. But all in all, our human rights around the globe are being taken. New laws are being put in place to limit our freedom. Technology is being put in to control us and to keep track of us and to integrate the technology we have on us, our mobile phones, our watches and things like that, integrate them into basically, I'm sorry to use the word, but like a matrix of electronic information. And unfortunately, that's no conspiracy anymore. That's right in front of our eyes. For a lot of people, it's not right in front of their eyes, although it is, because the only thing that's right in front of their eyes is a death toll and the fact that this virus could cause them to die, when in the grand scheme of things, there really are a lot worse things going on right now. We really just need to stand together. Do not agree, do not bow to authoritarian control. Do not give up your human rights. Do not give in to the fear, give in to the panic, give in to the trickery of the media. Do not give in to the fact that you need some sense of security from a government that is willing to abuse and kill thousands, millions, billions of the human race. We are the majority. There is power to the people. There is 8 billion people on this earth. And there is only a small degree, a small handful of people in power that have to trick and manipulate and program and force feed toxins and all these things into us just to make us conform. Realize how much work is being put into our suffering, to our illness, to our disease, to our suppression, to our psychological breakdown, so that these governments, so that these people in power, so that corporations and all this can make money off us, that can use us to make their products to sell to ourselves that we don't even want, that we're being tricked by such an evil system. That I showed you that clip earlier in the video, and it gives you a sense of what else is going on in the world. That people are now being tracked by their government, that if they go a certain place or their phone goes off or that they don't take a selfie or whatever, that the police can just turn up at their house.
If you are in isolation, it says you have to take a selfie, not to risk having the police on your door to check on you. What's going on? It says here, if you're in quarantine, you must download I think it's a tracking app, or the police will come. And when you get a message to take a selfie, you have to take a selfie within 20 minutes.
Realise how fucked up that is, and how we cannot let this happen. We cannot give in to this, because otherwise we will see what George Orwell wrote about in 1984. We will see a totalitarian government of New World Order, and it's not pretty, and no one wants to live it, no matter how much you've been deceived. And so all I can say is just stand together. Do not give in to the fear. Do not give in to the propaganda. Do not give in to whatever new laws are coming in. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for your loved ones. Stand up for your country. Stand up for your society. Stand up for your culture. Stand up for humanity. It is coming to a point where governments clearly do not care about us. They do not want the best for us. They do not want to protect us. They don't want us to be happy. They don't want us to live happily. They don't want us to live well. They don't want us to be free. They want to control us. They want to make us sick, and they want us to do as we're told, so that they can do whatever the fuck they want. And people need to realise this before it's too late. So, with all that being said, I know this video has been a bit of a weird vibe to what I'm usually going on about. However, we really do need people to realise what's going on now, and to realise what's going on in the world, and to do something about it, because at the rate things are going, it doesn't look like we're going to have long to do something. And we're all going to regret it if we don't, I'm sure. So with all that being said, I'm sorry this video has not been the most uplifting. I will have a part 3 of this coming soon, which hopefully, plan is to get this a bit more on an uplifting level. However, truth bombs are never pleasant, but they are necessary, especially right now. So with all that being said, please take care. Don't give up, don't give in, stay well, stay healthy, much love.